Word came out this week that the $7,500 EV incentive could become available to everyone, not just people who already pay $7,500 in taxes. And we're going to explore what that could mean in terms of demand, in terms of affordability, and in terms of all that good stuff. And I'm Brian. Welcome to my Tesla Weekend. Joined today by Herbert. How are you today, Herbert?
I'm doing very well, Brian. Thank you very much. I think that this topic is very important. We should talk about it, and I'm glad we are. Jeff Lutz, who I interview quite a bit, says, I love the way he says it. When you wake up on January 1st, you go to bed December 31st, you wake up on January 1st, all of a sudden, you're going to be able to buy a car, electric vehicle, if you hit the right targets here. You're going to be able to have it $7,500 off the price tag.
The actual
right then and there.
sticker. Yeah, the actual sticker will be lower. So what happens today is, let's go back a year when these cars were $70,000 and there was no credit, or even to earlier this year when they were higher. In order to qualify for that credit, you have to be under a certain threshold, about 300,000, which most buyers are, but you also have to be over a certain amount because the 7,500 is not. It's a refund against what you would have owed. If you owe less than $7,500, you only get whatever your tax liability is. So if you make $20 an hour and have no dependents, you're probably only paying $2,000-3,000 in tax. That's your maximum credit. If you're making $50,000-60,000 and have 3 kids, you might have no tax liability and get no benefit. But in any case, if you qualify, starting January 1st, you'll be able to take it off the sticker. So instead of going out and buying a $50,000 EV and financing, let's say, well, I'm going to finance the whole thing. Well, now then you get $7,500 back. Your payment's still too high. This solves that part of it. What kind of difference do you think that's going to make?
I think quite a bit, right? So obviously, as the months move closer to the April date, which is when you're going to file your taxes. When it was like 6 months ago, people just like they would buy the electric vehicle and they would go, sometime next year, I'm going to get that money back. Just too far ahead that they're not going to make the decision to buy that vehicle then because of that. But now, as we're even here in October, November, and December, people are now realizing that, I'm going to get it back by April. But in January, you're going to get it back right then and there. I think the way it works is that the dealer will just price it even lower because they will get reimbursed from the government will pay them back. So it's like immediate cut. The price is going to immediately be lower, and that even though we knew that the incentives have been around for many months, like I've been saying, I don't think it moved the needle as much as it will January and onward. And the other thing I'm very, very excited about was that the price. It's just crazy that. I'm not happy when you just said that it's all like only the people who pay taxes can get the cut back, but it's pretty impressive that it's available for people with the households, married couples. That is $300,000. That's pretty good, or $225,000 for heads of household, $150,000 for single tax filers. So that seems like it's pretty fair that it's high enough that's going to be able to hit more people.
Most people for sure. So if you're talking about a $35,000 car, $7,500 is like 20% of your payment. It's a big chunk. So that means your monthly payment would be 20% lower, but also it's now not as high of a percentage of your income, which means you're in a different risk pool. You now have the likelihood of even getting better rates on the same car, with basically the same loan. So it's going to create a lot of affordability by doing that. And there was a proposed change. The Treasury, it was reported on CNBC that this week that the Treasury is considering making that $7,500 not a refundable credit and not a point of sale credit, but just a credit, just flat a credit.
Oh, good.
And what that means is that people who make very little money, let's say you're in college and you're living on savings and you need a car.
That need it.
Yeah. Or let's say you're the working poor. Well, working poor shouldn't be buying $35,000 cars. Right, but it's not a $35,000 car. It's a $28,000 car that saves you $200 a month in gas. It's arguably the best deal out there. Those people, what are they going to do? Go back to buying Civics and Camrys because now they're cheaper because they don't get the credit? It makes no sense. It creates the wrong incentive. So if this rule can move through January 1st, it's going to make the cars a lot more affordable for someone. Because if you look at, looking at a new Model Y today, they're what? In the 40s already. But the difference between having the credit and not having the credit is huge. It's huge. Now this is going to create a little bit of a beating for the people in the secondary car market, in the used car market, but that's, how cars work. So if these cars, which are already priced very well, can now, for everyone, qualify for the $7,500 discount, or virtually everyone. Plus, in many states, like Colorado has some very generous EV credits, and a number of states do. What's that going to do to the demand? How many more units can we sell?
Okay, so I think there's two things we could talk about here. So if it's turned into a credit, it's a big deal because of how they display the price to the consumer. Currently today, when Tesla shares the price, they have to have this little tiny subtext in there that says, like, here's the price. And that says it could be this low if you qualify, you know what I mean? But now they can just say the price is 7,000, here's the actual price. It's not this price, it's this price, which is 7,500 lower. Right? That's a big deal. The second thing is, what's going to do for demand. And we have seen this price elasticity curve. ARK Invest had shared it. We've done a number of shows showing this, which shows that even just $5,000 reductions in prices has a tremendous upswing in terms of price elasticity. The TAM for that, the market availability for people to buy the car, jumps more than just 5%, like 10, 15%, even higher. And now that we're getting even closer to the $40,000, $35,000 mark, you're now getting huge jumps to the majority of the population able to buy it. It was just a great chart because it showed that, people are trying to sell a $75,000, $100,000 car. We're talking maybe 1, 2, 5% of the population is going to be able to afford to buy that. Tiny little numbers. But as you bring it down by $5,000 cheaper each time, huge jumps.
I want to say it doubles each 5,000.
We're at that inflection point.
I want to say it might double.
It depends on where in the inflection curve it is, right? That's what I was saying, that if you were at the $55,000 to $50,000 mark, it maybe is a 10, 15% jump. I think a 10% jump. But now that we're getting to the 40,000 area, that's where it skyrockets, and it could actually be double.
And these cars are already, many Teslas are sold for below the average cost of the average car in the U.S., regardless of the credit, without the credit. And to knock another 20% off would be, it'd be
Brian,
staggering.
Which car companies, electric vehicle car companies, can actually take advantage of this? Because I've been hearing that only Tesla or just a few. Why is it that you have to be built? The car had to be built in the U.S. The batteries
There's increasingly strict requirements. It started with it just has to be built here, and then they're moving to add that the battery will need to be built here, and eventually I think also the minerals, or the majority of them. And there are ways to average it across your fleet, which is how Tesla's able to qualify for credits, even on cars that are using Chinese-made LFP batteries, and because they're able, and I think the X might also qualify now, even though it has Japanese-made Panasonic batteries, and it's because the fleet average is still under the cutoff. And so they're able to do that. Now, if you're talking a Kia, those just don't qualify because they're not made here. No part of it's made here. And each year the rules get a little more strict and a little more strict. And of course, each manufacturer has to apply for eligibility through the IRS. And currently there's something like 20 cars that qualify for partial or full credit. And it's great because this rule, when they were trying to write it, it was very clear that they were trying to write it in such a way that it was a giveaway to the union shops. But they can't just
Right.
say that. That would have been anti-competitive and illegal. It would have violated international trade agreements. So they had to try and craft this silly, and it ended up just benefiting Tesla the most, by far, by far and away. So that ended up being kind of a blessing for investors like you and I. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see. So what kind of, if all cars, if all threes and Ys can get the credit, and we've got these new price cuts that took effect just last week. We've got the reintroduction of the standard range Model Y. What do you see that doing for domestic demand for the 3 and Y over the coming year?
Oh, that's a very good question. I mean, obviously the Y is already the best-selling vehicle around the world, and it's just gonna be even more compelling. So that's gonna go up for sure. The three it didn't hit the mark, but with the I think we need to see the Highland come out. And then you and I were talking that the Highland, which is sporty model, but I was hoping it was gonna be cheaper, and they didn't. They priced it. Now we think it could be just the intro price that they priced it actually higher than they were the original three. But if the Highland, which is a better car than the previous Model 3 in so many ways, and it's sporty, and they can lower that by 7,500, that's the one I think that's going to take off. I've been saying that the sedan has a massive market. You and I did a wonderful show a while back where you just educated the hell out of everybody about how the sedans are just don't have a market here in the US, but they are globally like the second in command after SUVs. And so it's just going to take off everywhere. But I think that the sedan will do very well in the US. I think you explained why, right? You said that the only reason sedans aren't doing well here is not that people don't want it, which is what most people believe. It's because the three major car manufacturers here in the US decided not to sell it because they couldn't afford selling it. And so they started to go SUV and trucks. So I think there's going to be a huge market for the three here.
Yeah, and that is the thing, is they stopped making them because they couldn't make a profit. It wasn't that what the market demanded, it's what they imposed upon the market. You can't buy a car that doesn't exist. And you'll notice the BMW, Mercedes, even Honda and Toyota still sell sedans like crazy. But the big three have said, nope, not for us. We're going to just sell big, dumb gas guzzlers. What a terrible decision. Well, Herbert, thank you so much for swinging by. Check out Brighter with Herbert. Everybody else, stay tuned, stay juicy, and I can't wait to hear from you clever robots on the flippity flop. Sure, why not?